Steve Urkel became a global phenomenon.
Got any cheese?
In a 2021 interview, Jaleel claimed the cast wasn't supportive of his success.
He needs to get over whatever it is that's biting him. He didn't have the etiquette that maybe I and some others had, but there was one time he actually wanted to physically fight me. I turned around and said, "You want to fight?" Darius grabbed me. I was going to go in there and whip his behind. I was going to whip his behind. You better check that attitude at the door.
Yo, Jaleel White, in his book, Growing Up Urkel, he seems to have what many would call a narcissistic God complex, because I'm reading it, and even though he bashes a lot of celebrities, but then I look at his relationships with women, and the first girl that he mentions in the book is Rashida Jones, Quincy Jones' daughter. He says that he thought she was the most beautiful girl, and he walked up on her and slipped her his phone number unwarranted, and then she had the gauze, the audacity to show everybody on set publicly. He said he was so humiliated. He couldn't believe her. He was outraged. And I was like, oh man, that wasn't cool. So I kept reading. And then he goes, I kid you not, this is the funniest story. He goes on to talk about Bianca Lawson, Beyonce's stepsister, Richard Lawson's daughter. Now, Richard Lawson has been an actor in his own right. He was well known. And let's not forget that Bianca Lawson is related to the Gordy family. Barry Gordy, all of those. Yeah. But he had the audacity to say when he was 16 years old, she would have been 13. I did the math. When he was 16 years old, he asked her for her number. At the time, he had no idea that ambition is what got him her phone number and not on his part. He says at 16, he invited her out on a date and he was trying to give her affection and attention, hold her hand, hug her, and she was having none of it. And I'm like, sir, she was 13. She shouldn't have been on a date in the first place. But I read on. He said the whole time he was trying to give her affection and she was not returning any of it. But then as soon as they got to the arcade, she had the gauze to turn around and ask him for money to play the arcade games. And he felt some type of way, like, you haven't been showing me much attention and you want my coin? I could not believe it. And then he went on to say, a year later, he was watching Saved by the Bell and he saw none other than Bianca Lawson. And he was like, oh, okay. She just wanted to use me for my connections. She saw me as an opportunity. I was like, sir, she's connected to the Gordys. They were clicked in with the Jacksons. What are you talking about? So I'm like, okay, I'm starting to notice a pattern of thought. He seems like one of those guys that feel like all women should bow down and kiss the feet that he has on his legs. He feels like he's God's gift to women, and he shows this. He then goes on to talk about Tatyana Ali. He says that he was always told that she was such a sweet girl, such a nice girl, really similar to her character on Fresh Prince. But lo and behold, when he met her, she had a boyfriend. And because she had a boyfriend, she didn't want to be around him. And when they had that kissing scene, she turned her neck so far to the left that she didn't even want their lips to touch. She was so appalled at the thought of having to kiss him. By the way, she's also 3 years younger than him. And she did have a boyfriend at the time, which he mentions. So I'm like, okay. But it's funny because I'm like, people are not like their characters. This is why you're writing the book. But either way, I digress. But isn't that what actors and actresses do? They don't always kiss. They just make it look like it is part of acting. I could not. I was like, okay, so he really wanted a kiss from her. And he saw that scene as his way of getting what he wanted. And it didn't happen. And the way he goes on to talk about Tatyana Ali, you would think she's a snob, a stuck-up snob. And I was like, she did nothing wrong. She did nothing wrong. She did her job. And that's what you guys were there to do. a job. And then he went on to give the business to Claire Danes. He said that he is so talented that when he tried out for that movie, The Mob Squad, she was so threatened by his talents that she asked for someone else, and the role ended up going to Omar Epps. I'm like, okay, so he feels again like he is God's gift. And I thought it couldn't get any worse. I thought that had to be the end of it, right? Like some woman has to like find your heart, right? But no. He goes on to briefly talk about his kid's mother. And I guess they had some type of custody dispute, and it got rough. She accused him of all types of physical allegations. She said that he put the paws on her, and that, he called her white basura. And I don't know, it was a lot of allegations. And then he says that he went on Dancing with the Stars. And around that time, he had a partner named Kim Johnson. And Kim Johnson was around to witness him get served with papers at the dance rehearsal, and she automatically judged him. She didn't even know the story, but all she know is that some woman had accused him of putting hands on her, and she didn't want to be around him or alone with him. So she started to miss rehearsals. And one time they were supposed to fly somewhere. They were going out of town. And he said he was responsible for booking their tickets, and she couldn't make rehearsal because she had another side job, another gig. He said he felt like she was lying. She was lying about that side gig. And how dare she miss rehearsal when he himself, the greatest of all time, is at the rehearsal? So when he booked his seat, he booked himself first class, and he booked her in coach. His manager stepped in and saw it, thought it was an error, took the coach seat, and was able to get Kim Johnson in first class. He was going to try to humble her. Yeah, I was like, isn't this the same lady that he I think he stepped on her foot and she said ouch, and he went off on her and started saying that she was a baby and she need to be a professional and do her job and like he let her have it. Like she walked out that studio crying in tears. He later went on to apologize because people were relating his behavior with that of what his ex was accusing him of. Like he was on Dancing with the Stars set giving the business. It was reported that he actually got suspended for the rest of that day, couldn't go back to the studio, and was demanding his own studio. He stated that this was all just a misunderstanding and lies. It was all lies. None of this ever happened. And then his coworkers kind of got on board and they all told the same story, even though they were singing a different tune just a few days earlier. But I think in order to save the show, they had to kind of get on the same page, and he had to be family friendly. And he went on for like 12 to 14 weeks of that show. So it ended up working out for him. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Do you think Jaleel White has a narcissistic God complex? I honestly do. And have you read the book? Let me know in the comments below. My name is Daisha Shakila, giving y'all my opinion.